Andrew's birth, a Soviet summer, 1985. Part 1. Before the Cry. June 13th, 1985. Late evening. A quiet town in central Soviet Ukraine. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting long, tired shadows across the panel buildings of a residential district. In the far distance, the rhythmic clatter of a train echoed like a mechanical lullaby, fading into the thick summer air. Inside apartment 42 on the 4th floor of a Khrushchevka, Olga Ivanivna sat on the edge of her narrow bed, one hand gripping her belly, the other clutching the edge of the windowsill. Her contractions had started slowly, soft, like whispers, but now they were becoming louder, firmer, undeniable. Yuri, her husband, stood nearby, pacing between the small kitchenette and the door. He was trying not to panic. Men weren't taught to panic. He kept checking his watch, even though it meant nothing. Time had shifted into something primal now. He grabbed the plastic bag they had prepared days earlier, 2 towels, soap, a clean nightgown, a tin of condensed milk, and a bundle of cotton diapers. The air smelled of boiled potatoes, linoleum, and fear. At 10:24 p.m., they knocked on their neighbor Ivan's door. Ivan was a mechanic at the local tractor depot, and the proud owner of an old, wheezing Moskvich with a cracked windshield and a squeaky back seat. No one in their block had a phone, and ambulances took hours. Ivan rubbed his eyes, grunted, pulled on his pants, and within 10 minutes, they were on the road. Outside, the city was asleep. But inside Olga, life was fighting to be born. Part 2. The maternity ward. The hospital smelled like metal, bleach, and boiled barley. It was a squat, square building, standard Soviet design, painted in a tired yellow color that peeled around the windows. Inside, the walls were olive green on the bottom, white on top, with long corridors that hummed under the cold flicker of fluorescent lights. By midnight, Olga was lying on a rusted delivery bed in a dim room lit by a single overhead lamp. There were no curtains, no husband, no music, only pain and silence, interrupted now and then by the soft shuffle of nurses' shoes on linoleum. The young midwife, Lena, wiped sweat from Olga's forehead with a frayed cotton cloth. Her eyes were soft, but her hands were strong. She had delivered dozens of babies already, though she was only 23. "Almost there. Breathe," she said. Not gently, not harshly, just practically. Outside, through a cracked window, a moth kept hitting the glass. A night train whistled far away. Somewhere, a dog barked into the darkness. And then, at 2:06 a.m., Olga screamed, not a cry of fear, a cry of ending and beginning. A new sound answered hers, a high-pitched, defiant cry from a baby boy. He was placed on a cold metal scale, 3.5 kilograms, pink, alive, loud. No one clapped. There were no flowers. But Lena smiled. "He's strong," she said. Olga couldn't move, but tears spilled from her eyes anyway. She whispered, barely audible, "His name is Andrew." Part 3. The Father's Corridor. Yuri stood in the hallway of the hospital, under a flickering light that buzzed like a dying insect. The walls were painted with the same two-tone scheme as every public building in the USSR, olive green halfway up, then chalky white. Posters about hygiene, childbirth, and patriotism were pinned at crooked angles on a corkboard by the window. It had been hours. The birth wing didn't allow fathers inside. Yuri had offered cigarettes to two other expectant men, one young and shaking, the other silent and stone-faced. They said little. Words felt out of place here, so he paced, back and forth, over and over. Each step made the soles of his boots scrape against the linoleum. Every time he passed the payphone on the wall, he looked at it, though he had no one to call. He was thinking about his father, about the day he was born, sometime in 1950. His own father had waited the same way, standing in some anonymous Soviet hallway with no updates, no comfort, just silence and the occasional click of nurses' heels. That was the legacy. This was what it meant to be a man in their world. You waited. You carried the worry alone. You didn't cry. At 2:15 a.m., a nurse emerged from the delivery wing. Her face was unreadable. She looked at a clipboard, then at him. "Yuri Ivanovich?" He stood. "Son," she said. That one word, that was all. He nodded, slowly, swallowed hard. Then, he smiled, just a little. Part 4. A new morning. The sun rose slowly over the rooftops of the town. Light poured in through the dusty windows of the maternity ward, turning the pale green walls into something almost golden. The silence of the night was gone, replaced by clinks of metal trays, soft voices, and distant footsteps. Olga awoke to a dull ache in her whole body. But it wasn't pain that woke her. It was the quiet sound of breathing, right beside her. Small, uneven, real. Andrew. Wrapped in a thin, washed-out blanket, he lay in a steel-framed crib that rolled on squeaky wheels. His skin was still red. His eyelids fluttered in dreams he couldn't yet understand. His tiny fists were closed like a protest against the world. Olga reached out, slowly, almost afraid to touch him. No cameras, no balloons, no relatives waiting in the hallway. Just her, him, and the morning light. She ran a hand gently over his little forehead, tracing his eyebrows. He smelled of something pure. New life, cotton, and hospital antiseptic. Her body was heavy, but her heart had never been so awake. Outside the window, the world continued. A tram screeched by. A neighbor hung laundry on a balcony. A loudspeaker on the factory wall clicked on. Dobrogo ranku, tovarishi. Inside, she whispered his name again. This time fully. Andrew Ivanovich. And for the first time, his tiny eyelids opened. Part 5. Homecoming. The door to the hospital creaked open. Olga stepped out into the bright sunlight, blinking. Her legs still trembled, but her grip on the tightly swaddled bundle in her arms was firm. Yuri stood at the bottom of the stairs, holding a small bouquet of wilted gladiolus from the kiosk near the bus stop. His shirt was freshly ironed, his hair combed nervously. When he saw them, his face froze, just for a second, before softening with something deeper than joy. No band, no photos. But one neighbor from the third floor waved from across the courtyard. "Congratulations, Yuri. Looks like a strong one." Yuri just nodded, unable to speak. They climbed the narrow stairwell slowly. The paint peeled on every landing. The smell of boiled cabbage, old rugs, and cigarette smoke lingered like a memory. At the top, apartment 27, a steel door, a worn handle. Inside, a crib borrowed from a cousin, a mattress stuffed with wool, a small wooden chest with freshly washed linen. On the wall, a small black and white photo of Yuri in uniform, and on the windowsill, a ceramic cat with one ear missing. It wasn't much, but it was theirs. That night, the baby cried once, then again. Olga fed him, half asleep, humming a melody she didn't even realize she remembered. Yuri lay on his side, facing the wall, wide awake, listening, not just to the baby, but to the shift in time, the quiet of a home that would never sound the same again. He closed his eyes and smiled.